Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 133rd episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it had, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So today we're doing another late 80s classic, but really quick I wanted to mention that I threw a couple of 1991 albums in the mix for this set, partially just to even it out a bit, but mainly because I realized there's no real reason to draw a line every 10 decades like at 1990 or 2000, outside of instinct telling you to cut things off in sections of 10. In reality, that isn't really how music and culture evolve, which is exactly why most hip hop albums from 1990, 91, or even 92 sound closer to late 80s classics than they do 1999 albums. Even the term golden age, to me at least, always came across like it was referring to the late 80s to early 90s. You'll get an idea of what I'm talking about on my next video, but for this one, I want to bring back Boogie Down Productions, one of the acts right at the forefront of the pro-black knowledge is power movement that was blossoming from every corner of New York at the time, from Public Enemy to the Native Tongues. While I may have already discussed BDP and the impactful debut they burst onto the scene with in 1987, they returned the very next year with By All Means Necessary, which is just as dope if not better than the debut. With the horrible murder of DJ Scott LaRock transpiring just a month after the release of Criminal Minded, there's a pretty drastic change in tone and subject matter here. While KRS-One was already a socially conscious rapper to a large degree, the events with Scott led him to largely shift away from some of the violent themes of the debut. I discussed his role in the Stop the Violence movement a bit in my last BDP video, so I'll leave a link for that one down below if you want to check it out. This is really where KRS developed his moniker as the teacher, and he backed it up on Boogie Down's sophomore LP here, and he's continued to give knowledge and wisdom every chance he's had over the last 30 years. He's gone out of his way to keep Scott LaRock's name alive and not let it fade into obscurity, and honestly, he's done an amazing job at it. Just to be clear, even with Chris having a pretty dense solo discography after Scott's passing, Boogie Down Productions still continued as an entity on into the early 90s, with quality LPs like Ghetto Music, The Blueprint of Hip Hop, Edutainment, and Sex and Violence, which were all released within a 3-year span of each other. Even though KRS wouldn't really come into his full form until the early to mid 90s, it was on BDP's second album here that we really saw him plant the seed of knowledge that he's continued to water throughout his lengthy and productive career. He makes sure the audience knows what his MO is before you even put on the LP, with the Malcolm X By Any Means Necessary inspired title and cover, and then the 5-minute hip-hop masterclass My Philosophy, which perfectly leads you in as a opening track. He addresses how even just the previous year, he had felt invincible and on top of the world, and how that world was then subsequently turned upside down once Scott LaRock was killed, but he still somehow managed to turn the situation around and come out with one of the most influential and impactful albums to come out of the Golden Age. This is one of those classics like EPMD's Strictly Business or Run DMC's Tougher Than Leather, where virtually every song has multiple lines and or an instrumental that you'll recognize through its reuse by younger acts, be it Mos Def or Yasin Bey, Mad Villain, Jurassic 5, De La Soul, UGK, or Atmosphere. Both of Boogie Down's first two LPs provided sample or reference material for what would become essential hip-hop down the line. However, it isn't as if these songs were sleeper hits that took a while to become influential, as even NWA would sample My Philosophy later that same year through Gangsta Gangsta, which is definitely one of my favorite tracks off of Straight Outta Compton, and I've always loved the way that they flipped the BDP song. But while you could pick from a long line of classic, memorable moments off this album, one that always really stuck out to me, even from the first time I heard it, was the closing track, Necessary. It kind of blurs the line between a skit and a traditional rap song, as the lack of drums matched with the glacial pace he delivers these spoken word inspired rhymes with. isn't something I imagine too many fans at the time were riding around bumping out the whip. But the instrumental has this kind of sinister and suspenseful quality to it that isn't dissimilar to the ominous and kind of eerie vibe I get from the Return to Innocence Lost off Things Fall Apart by The Roots, which I discussed in length for my review for that album, which I'll leave in the description as well. While that song is definitely a lot more soul-crushing and depressing than this one, they both share their own unique, poignant, and important messages. Necessary is the perfect outro because it sums up all the ideas and themes we were treated to over the previous hour, and he makes some amazing points about contradictions when it comes to criticisms of hip hop in relation to other forms of music, many of which I found myself using similar arguments to in debates I'll get in myself. The benefit of the minimal instrumental that probably wouldn't even be classified as a beat is it allows KRS to concisely lay out his arguments with little to no distractions, which really gives you no choice but to sit and reflect on what he's telling you. I think a great indication of what you're in for with this song and album in general comes from the first handful of lines the Blastmaster gives us with, "When some get together and think of rap, they tend to think of violence. But when they are challenged on some rock groups, the result is always silence. Even before the rock and roll era, violence played a big part in music. It's all according to your meaning of violence and how or in which way you use it. Oh no, it's not violent to show in movies the destruction of the human body, but yes, indeed, it's very violent to protect yourself in a party. And oh no, it's not violent when under the Christmas tree there's a look-alike gun, but yes, of course, it's violent to have an album by KRS-One. It's also definitely worth mentioning that with BDP being tragically cut down from two members to one, virtually every aspect of this album was handled by the teacher himself, and it kind of reminds me of the last Tribe Called Quest LP, where even outside of the amazing music and how it's executed, you get the sense that they wanted to finish these projects with the utmost care, putting time and effort into preserving their fallen comrades' legacy. When it comes to honorable mentions on this timeless sophomore LP, I want to shout out tracks like You Slippin', Stop the Violence, Nervous, I'm Still Number One, Jimmy, and Teacher Teacher. For my three overall favorites on here, they'd probably have to be Necessary, My Philosophy, and Illegal Business. Thank you for watching my 133rd video. Next time, we're going to talk about one of those very few 1991 classics I referenced earlier, so tune in for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what your favorite moments off this game changer are. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.